my name's Annette, and you may know me as Nettersplays, and today I'm going to go over my acquisitions and impressions for the month of May. Now, I gathered a total of 20 different new games. Now, these games, it may seem like a lot, however, it's all due because I went to KublaCon, which is a board gaming convention in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I acquired a lot because they have a flea market there that I took advantage of. So let me go over my unplayed games first, which I didn't play 7 out of the 20 games, which is fairly good. And then afterwards, I'll go over my played games too. So let's get to it. So the first game I'll go over is this game called Lemuria. Now Lemuria is a 3 to 4 player game by Tasty Minstrel, and it's designed by Kuro. Now this is a game I've never heard about. However, I was really interested on it, based on the cover art and also the size of the box. What I really liked about it is the fact that it has a small footprint. It has a small little board and a lot of little components, which are great. And the cool thing about this is that it's a resource management game, which I really like those kind of games. And you acquire these different cards or characters and you build these different buildings and such. So I haven't played this game yet, but I'm really interested in trying this out. And that game is Lemuria. The next game I also acquired is an expansion, and that is Orleans Trade and Intrigue. Now, Orleans is a game that I really enjoy. It's a bag builder game where you reach into a bag and you draw these different workers, these tokens, and then you apply them in these different areas and they do certain tasks for you. And you can go ahead and collect different resources, acquire new technology and such. So this expansion kind of expands that whole world. It creates new potential possibilities with, for example, orders. Now, orders are these cards where you can pretty much complete by acquiring these different resources and applying it to these orders in order to get points. Now, the intrigue portion of this game is a little bit different than the base game. What it adds is something a bit of a more take that kind of game, where you're pretty much going to start attacking one another and doing certain things that aren't going to favor your opponent. So, which can make the game a little bit more meaner, which I'm really interested in trying that out. So this game also adds the beneficial deed section, which is just another board where your workers can go on and do a little bit more extra stuff. So they could go ahead and kind of move in a different pathway in order to acquire different things. So that's a little different than the game, and I really want to check that out and see how much more it'll expand the world of Orleans, as well as adding a whole bunch of event cards to the already base game. So I'm really interested in just expanding my game of Orleans and kind of making it a little bit more kind of meaner between players. So that is the Orleans Trade and Intrigue expansion. So the next game I got is a game from KublaCon. Now, I acquired this game, BetaBotz, from B&B Games, and they are a company that has been producing a couple of small games. Now, this one right here was on Kickstarter, and it did so well and funded. I didn't back it, but I acquired it this time because I thought it was something a little bit more different than, what I usually play. Now, this game is a game where you're pretty much having these different robots and you're trying to build them up. So you're trying to kind of beef them up and such, but you do that through bid. You acquire these different cards, and these cards will go ahead and develop your robot, and then you're going to make some bid saying, oh, I bet you like this one's going to do better than that one and such. You go ahead and go through an auction in this game, and you kind of make deals between players. So, and then afterwards, once you start building up your robots, you can go ahead and fight them against one another. So this is a little bit different than what I'm used to, but I'm really interested in trying to see how it works between players and how the interaction between players works in this game. So that is BetaBotz. So the next game I acquired was at KublaCon, at this flea market. Now I got a really great deal on this game, and this game is called El Capitan. Actually, Mitchell bought this game. He bought this one because it was mainly by Wolfgang Kramer and Horst Rainier Rosner. Now this is a 2 to 5 player game. It plays well over an hour. But however, we really don't know too much about this game except that we had a really great deal and it's by a really great designer. Now, this game itself, I kind of looked into it a little bit, and it's pretty much about these different warehouses that we're trying to build on these different islands. And so what we do is, as captains of these different ships, is sail to these different locations and try to build these warehouses or fortresses and gain majority on those islands. If we gain majority, then we get a big payout. So we're trying to expand our presence pretty much and trying to gain majority in these different locations. Now, of course, there's all these different possibilities of ways of how to do that in this game that I'm not familiar with, but I'm really interested in exploring this game and seeing what it's all about since I haven't heard too much about it. So that game is El Capitan. So another game that I also acquired at Kublai Khan's flea market is this game called Poseidon. Now, Poseidon is an 18xx game. Now, it doesn't look like it because it has ships and it's all about traveling all over the ocean or seas. But it's supposed to be an entry-level 18xx game. Now, I've been interested in trying out one of those games. However, I'm not very familiar with those types of games, so I would need someone that is in order to teach me, as well as investing so much time into it. Now, this kind of is a game that I was kind of familiar with because I've had so many people recommend this as an entry-level 18xx game. So in this game right here, what you're trying to do is you're trying to just move across those lands, and it's supposed to simulate the movement and the investments and everything else that is involved in an 18xx. However, it kind of makes it a little bit easier, and it also cuts the time by a lot. So this game is supposed to last about 2 hours or so. This game won't take like 4 to 6 hours, so I'm really interested in trying this game out and seeing what these 18xx games are all about. So hopefully I made a really good deal with this by checking this game out, but I'm pretty sure I did since I got it at a fairly good price. So this other game I also acquired at the flea market, and this game is called Burano. Now, Burano is a game that I've kind of heard about. I've had several people recommend this game to me, but I haven't really looked around for it, and I actually found it at the flea market for a really good price. Now, I'm really not familiar with the game. Based on just my first impression of the components and the quality of the game, I'm really impressed with it. I really like the cardboard that's involved for every player's player board, and also the main board itself, and the big chunky cubes. Now, this game also came with the sleeved cards, which is something games don't usually come with, but because I got a used copy for a good deal, I also got my card sleeved in this game. So that's an added bonus for it. So I'm really interested in finding out what this game is more about. So definitely, if you recommend this game or if you know anything more, then just go ahead and leave a comment down below as well. So that is Burano. So now I'm going to go over the games that I did manage to play. And the first game that I will go over is this game called Solstice. Now, Solstice is a game by Grant Rodiak, and I got this off of Kickstarter. Now, the really cool thing about this that I really enjoy is the fact that I also participated in the playtesting of this game, and now it's really great to see it at its final form. Now, the cool thing about this game is that it's a simple little card game, it looks like. However, the interactions between players is really interesting. So what this game has is, it's loosely based on the theme of Dune. You have these different characters that are going to go to these different planets. And what we're trying to do is acquire different majorities on those planets to gain points. Very simple it might seem. However, what we do is we have a hand of cards of these different characters or events and such. And what we're going to do is we're going to draft. So we're going to pick one, pass it along, grab from the other, and pick and go. So then you're drafting these cards, and then once you have your set of hands, then you're going to go ahead and place them onto these planets. And this is a shared pool of planets that we're all going to place cards towards. So the interaction is going to lay in that aspect on the table, as well as the drafting aspect between players. It's a really interesting game, and it's really difficult to find out like what other players are, what they're going to take from you, what you should take, and also where you're going to place those cards that you took from one another. So it's really interesting. to see that system just played out on the table. Another cool thing about this game is that Grant also sent me these wooden chips. They're these laser cut chips that are really nice and really kind of up the value of this game and makes it more presentable and enjoyable when you play it as well. So I'm really impressed with the fact that, you know, I saw it from, it's just really like playtesting format all the way to the final format, and it's really good to see that whole progress of this one game develop. So that is the game of Solstice. The next game is being republished by Tasty Minstrel Games, and this game is called Guns and Steel. Now, Guns and Steel is a 2 to 4 player game, and it plays in about an hour or so. Now, the cool thing about this game is the fact that it's a small little card game, and it's supposed to resemble a civ building game. So a civilization game is pretty much a game that has all these different types of tech trees. You can start at one location, you can develop and expand yourself in certain different types of ways. This game is very similar to that in the sense that you have this pyramid and you're trying to acquire these cards from the bottom all the way up to the top to develop your own civilization. You grab these cards and you start playing them in front of you in a tableau, and then eventually you'll cycle through them and develop and cycle and such. So the cool thing about this game is that it gives you that sense of building a civilization right in front of your hand with just a few set of cards. Now, I really enjoyed that because instead of playing this big, huge game that takes several hours, like Civilization or like Through the Ages and stuff like that, it just compacts it down to about an hour and just a few little cards. So it kind of gives you that fulfillment of trying to complete this grandiose civilization, but in a small deck of cards. So definitely, if you're interested in just playing a small civ game, then I'd recommend Guns and Steel. So the next game is a game that I also acquired from Tasty Minstrel, and that game is called Okey Dokey. Now, Okey Dokey is a game of pretty much between 1 to 5 players where we're all trying to work together. It's a cooperative game where we're all trying to lay out all the cards in this deck. Now, there's 5 different colors, and these colors range in numbers between 1 and 8. And what we're trying to do is place all the cards onto the table and just play them all out, and we win. However, doing that is a little bit more difficult because you can't talk to one another and tell each other what you have in your hand. So everyone's going to take a turn to place a card, and we can't communicate, so you don't know if you should or shouldn't play a card because it might kind of hinder the next player. So it kind of plays, or at least it reminded me of the game. The game is sort of a similar sense where you're also trying to play out all the cards in a deck and you're working cooperatively without talking to one another. It kind of plays like that too. Now, this game is a little bit easier than that game itself. It's easier to figure out like who has what towards the end of the game. So if you're looking for something a little bit more simpler and also cuter, then I would suggest Okey Dokey. It's a game that you can pretty much introduce to younger players or people that aren't too familiar with games as well. So I'd highly recommend this as an entry-level type of game. Okey Dokey. Another game that I also acquired from Tasty Minstrel is this game called Joraku. Now, Joraku is a 3 to 4 player game, and what it is it's a small little compact card game, a trick-taking game, that also incorporates area majority too. So it's like an area control on a board. So the cool thing about this game, first off, is that it's very compact and small. Now, the game that you're playing between players is like ordinary trick-taking games, and you're trying to figure out who has the trump and such, and trying to gain the majority and trying to win these different tricks. But based on those different tricks that you're winning, you're also trying to place your samurais and on the board as well. And you're trying to gain majority, so you can move your characters on the board, or you can just go ahead and put more characters on the board, and you could do all these different things in 3 rounds. So the really neat thing is that it incorporates 2 different mechanisms and kind of mashes them all together. So you have trick-taking, and then you have area majority, and it's all compact into this small little box game. It's a really interesting game if you're into trick-taking, or even if you're not. You should definitely try this game. I highly recommend Joraku as a 3 to 4 player game. The next game I acquired at KublaCon, and that game is The Refuge. The Refuge, it looks sort of like a post-apocalypse type of game, and it sort of is, and it sort of is not. So this is a zombie game, of all things. It's a zombie game. And I don't really play those types of games because they're so thematic and I'm not into them. However, this game is very different than that. This game is more or less an abstract game. What it has is, yes, it has all these miniatures, which you might think it makes it thematic, but it's not. Because you use those different miniatures to kind of move around on this board. Now the board itself is a checkered area, and what you're doing is you're moving your character from one point to another orthogonally, and you're kind of using the space itself in order to protect yourself or move zombies across the board to attack others. What you're trying to do is go from one side of the board to the other side without getting eaten. And you could do that by acquiring these different cards, which will help you move in certain ways, or kind of protect you by, giving you a gun card or something like that to blast these zombies that are in front of you or attacking you. So you use the card plays, you use the squares on the actual board, and you also try to attack one another. It plays 2 to 6 players, and it's a game that's a little different than any other zombie game because it's more of an abstract feel to it. It's not very thematic, however, you still get the sense of trying to get from one part of the board to the other. Now, I've only played it with 2 players. I think with 2 players, it's probably not best with 2 players, but you probably can get a lot better if there's a little bit more chaos involved or a little bit more interaction with more players on the board, so you won't have to focus on just one other person. So definitely, if you're interested in a zombie game that's a little different, not so thematic, but you're into abstract games, then you should probably check this one out and kind of look into this one because it's different than most zombie games, and that is The Refuge. Another game I also acquired at the KublaCon flea market is this game called String Railway. Now this game is by Hisashi Hayashi, which also has created Yokohama and Trains and Sailed to India. Now this game itself is also a very unique and different game, unlike any other game I have. Now this game itself is all about connecting train lines between one station to another, which might not seem different. However, the way you connect it is by using string. These strings that you're using are of your color, and you're trying to connect one city to another or destination by moving the string and trying to connect the 2 ends to those different places. Or try to get your string through another location as well while trying to get to another destination. Now, the way you manipulate the string is really unique and different than any other game. And that's why I really was interested in getting this. I really got a good price break on this. It wasn't expensive at all, and it's not a very difficult game at all either. It's just a game that kind of uses your mind in a different way and is something just so different than any other game that it's really interesting and fun when you take out this box and it's full of string. You're saying, alright, let's just play a game. So it's really appealing to all players that are kind of new to the hobby as well, and just showing them something that's so unique like this is highly interesting. So I could highly recommend this game if you're into something that's a little different and kind of out of the box as well. So if you're interested, you should definitely try out String Railway. Another little quirky game that I also acquired at the flea market is this game called Im Arosa. Now, Im Arosa is a game about kind of trying to find out who committed a crime and trying to deduce it by using your ears, and you're trying to listen. So it's a really interesting and unique game that I don't have. What you do in this game is you build this tower out of these boxes, and each tower has a little hole on the top. And what you're doing is you have these different cubes, and you're trying to drop the cubes into this tower, try to listen to hear where they kind of stop. Now you can bounce other cubes off and you really can make the situation a little tricky. And what you're trying to do is find out where the victims are located in this tower and also who did it. So you're trying to figure out, you know, where your cubes are and trying to pinpoint the other players towards, you know, the location of where you found your victims. Now, it's a really interesting game because unlike most other games where you're using your sense of touch, your sight, and you're trying to figure out these different ways of, you know, interacting on the board. In this one, you're kind of using your ears. You're using a different sense, and you're trying to listen to these different drops of these cubes and trying to figure that out in a different kind of way. So I thought Im Arosa would be a really neat game that I can add to my collection and kind of make it a game that's a little different and interesting. So definitely if you're interested in something unique, quirky, different, that uses a different sense, then you should check out Im Arosa. So another game I also acquired at the flea market is this game called Octo Dice. Now, Octo Dice is a roll and write game that I've heard a lot about. Now, this game, I acquired it there for only $5. I thought, why not? And it's a really great investment. I'm really happy that I did that because this game was a lot of fun. Now, like all other roll and writes, what you're trying to do is just pretty much roll your dice, and based on that outcome, you go ahead and fill out little bubbles or check things off or add things in a certain way on a score pad or a little pad. Now, it's the same thing as that. However, the interesting thing of this game is that you have 6 dice, and on your turn you roll 6 of them. You take 2 away that you definitely want to use, and then you roll the other 4. Now, based on that outcome, that is your total amount of actions that you can use. However, you can't use them all. You only use 4 of those 6 dice. Now, when you use those combinations, then you go ahead and fill out and do whatever you need to do on your little pad. You have a lot of different options, different kind of pathways to follow along to get the most amount of points. But the other thing too is that your opponents can also use 2 of the 6 dice that you roll. So you can also use the dice of your opponents. So it's a really interesting kind of system because you want to make sure you're using the best type of actions and you're not rolling something that's going to benefit someone else. Of course, it's a lot of press your luck, but it makes it a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed Octo Dice, and I really highly recommend it if you're into roll and write games. So another flea market buy that I also acquired is this game called Ulm. Now, Ulm is a game that I've really been interested in, and I was really lucky to see it there at the flea market. Now, the cool thing about this game is that it's a 2 to 4 player game that plays in about an hour, but the really unique system of it is that it's like any other type of worker placement. However, the actions that you can use are based on these tiles. Now, you have this grid system of a 3x3 setup of tiles, and also you have these tiles in a bag. What you do is you reach into the bag, you acquire a tile, and then you can go ahead and place that tile on that grid on the edge, and either you could push a column through or a row through, and based on what's left of that column or row, you will get to use those actions. Now, those actions mean that you can acquire different coins, or you can go ahead and place your token at a location on the board, or you can move your little ship about, and the ship, you know, the farther you get along, the more points you will get. However, the faster you push along, the less space you can use on the board. So you kind of have to manage that balance. It's a really interesting, unique little game. And what I really like about it is that it really does play in an hour. I read the rules, we played it from beginning to end, and it was all within an hour. So it's a really fast-paced game. And it really wasn't too difficult to understand, but it really was a unique way of using actions and how to acquire those actions by pushing columns or rows and going ahead and using whatever's left over. It's really unique and different. I really enjoyed this game, and I'm looking forward to trying it out some more. So that is the game Ulm. Another game that I also acquired is a game that my friend brought over from Europe. Now, he brought me this game called 21. Now, 21 is a small little roll and write game that is sort of similar to Quicks and Quinto and that kind of line of game where you're rolling these dice and you're trying to move in a certain direction. So like Quicks, you're trying to go from left to right or from high number to low number or low number to high number. And this one, what you're trying to do is move along these different rows. So you're trying to complete these different rows and then you're trying to fill that up in order to move to the bottom row below that. And you're kind of racing with other players while you're trying to get the most amount of points from each row. Now, I also made a video on how to play this game and what I really like about it, so you can also check that out if you want to look more into this game. But I've really been enjoying this game as a roll and write. It's really easy and simple to introduce. You can play it in about 15 minutes, and it's really fun. It plays 2 to 6 players, and if you're by any chance in Europe, I don't think this is released in North America yet, but hopefully it'll get picked up. But if you're into like roll and write games, then you should definitely check this one out. It's called 21. So another game I also acquired from my friend in Europe is this game called Number 9. Now, Number 9 was my favorite game of this last month because it's a game that I taught to so many people. I taught it to over 20 people. But what I really enjoyed about this game is just how to jump into the game and just easily introduce it to someone. And the other thing too is that it's really mathy and really puzzling. You find yourself, even though you're playing solo, you still find yourself kind of involved in figuring out how to place these tiles in different ways and how to stack them up. So it's a really interesting kind of puzzle game. And the good thing about this game is that it also got picked up by Z-Man Games. So this game is not going to just be in Europe, but it's also going to come to North America and hopefully around the world because it's such a great game. I really enjoyed it. And this game is called Number 9. So at the end of May, I also went on vacation, and I went up to Portland, Oregon, and I also went through Washington and ended up in Seattle. And one of the games that I acquired while on vacation is called Morels. Now, Morels is a 2-player game only, and it's a really small card game. However, the theme is very unique, and it seemed really appropriate for us to play. Now, this game itself is about going into a forest, and you're going to be foraging these different mushrooms, and you get to cook them up, and you also are just trying to go ahead and gather these different sets and types of mushrooms. Now, it's a really interesting little card game with a unique theme, and I've been wanting to get this game. I backed the expansion, but I didn't have the base game, so now I have it. And the really neat thing about this is that it's just so unique and different with theme, and it was a really interesting little card game that I think I could just take this game with me wherever I go on vacation again. It's a really interesting little card, like set collection type of game, and with a really interesting just artwork itself and the way you play it. I really enjoyed it. It's a very casual kind of 2-player game. So I highly recommend Morels. If you're into 2-player games, I really suggest that you get this game. So this next game is the last game that I acquired for the month of May, and that game is called BarenPark. Now, BarenPark was a game that I picked up in Portland while I was visiting Tiffany and Steve. Tiffany is the one-tar. She also has a YouTube channel, which I'll go ahead and link below. But what I really was interested in, she saw it, she picked it up, and then she also picked up another copy for Suzanne. And she picked up one and saying, "Hey, Annette, I got you a job that you need to go deliver this one to Seattle." So, so I was going to go ahead and deliver that to her. And before we even left, I picked up a copy for myself. So a total of 3 copies of BarenPark was picked up that day. And so I had to have my own copy because I wanted to see what this game was all about. Now, BarenPark is about you pretty much building a bear park. And this place actually exists in Switzerland. And the cool thing about this is that it's a tile placement game. But the tiles are all different shapes and sizes, and they have different types of bears on them, meaning different types of points. And what you're trying to do is just kind of expand your park and lay these different tiles and gain the most amount of points. And you lay a tile over these different icons on these different boards. So every time you cover up a tile, you're going to go ahead and acquire a new tile to place later. Now, this game itself, I also made a video about it because I really enjoyed it. So if you're interested in learning more, you can also watch that video. However, this game I found was really fun and interesting and easy to introduce. I think this game will probably kind of be my go-to gateway tile placement game. It'll kind of outbeat the Cottage Garden game, which is really unique because I really enjoy Cottage Garden, at least introducing it to people because of the theme. But also making a BarenPark is very thematic and very fun and enjoyable to introduce to a new gamer. So definitely if you're looking into a gateway game, also that is all about tile placement in a really unique and different way, I'd highly recommend BarenPark. Well, those are all the games that I acquired for the month of May. And I know it's a lot, but then again, I also went on vacation, I had friends visiting, and I went to a board gaming convention. So it might seem like a lot, but it's because I had so many interesting and different opportunities to get games itself. So thank you so much for watching this video. Also remember, you can subscribe, you can like, and leave comments down below to any other recommendations or anything else that you enjoy about these games that I presented today. Also, you can follow me on Meeples Included. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter or Facebook as well. I'm also doing a segment on the Board Game Breakfast for the Dice Tower. And also, I'm a part of the Instagamers Network. So you can follow me at all these different links down below in the description. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye!